but it relates to this sort of idea of self-esteem that we have, and how
Mhm.
self-esteem can be quite damaging, because self-esteem is very much a fluctuating thing, and you can have intense high levels of self-esteem. It tends to be that, in my opinion, that the higher your self-esteem can be, the lower it also can be. It's not a stable, it's not in a stable state, it's in a fluctuating state. And I was watching a video the other day, and this guy was talking about how there needs to be less of an emphasis on us as people, because us individually, because apparently they're sort of working out now that this idea of self-consciousness is basically just the same term as anxiety. So when someone says they're feeling self-conscious, they basically mean they're feeling anxious. So I get it on the podcast a few times, sometimes when it's sort of happening now, but because I brought it up. But if I'm speaking and focusing on the guest, and not focusing on what I'm saying, just letting it flow, then I don't freeze up and sort of feel that sense of, oh dear, I don't know what I'm saying. But when I put the emphasis back on me and focus on what I'm saying, which is basically the same as being self-conscious, I feel anxious, because I'm like, oh dear, what do I say now? I need to say this, and I just said that, and that wasn't quite right, but what do I say now? So the point they were trying to make is that you have to foster relationships around people. And you said something earlier about how when you were away, you started exercising. And I sort of saw that as, interpreted that as, you were building a relationship with the exercise, and you were also building a relationship with the aspect of you that wanted to exercise. So you were feeding that part of you, so it grew, ironically. And then you were not feeding other aspects of you, sort of aspects of you that you were maybe previously feeding, and maybe it was because that relationship, which I can imagine was awful, because relationship breakups are awful, and especially if you'd gotten back and forth with that person, you've developed like a real sort of, I don't want to say toxic, because I think that's thrown around too much, but
It
like a,
it is thrown around, but it's this endless cycle of just, it is toxic. I don't know how else to put it. You want to say hell?
hell, yeah, is a
Yeah.
unhealthy.
Oh, that's a beautiful word.
And
Yeah.
then, so it was really hard to sort of rip away. Just one thing that I also want to bring up before I let you talk for a bit, um,
Yeah, yeah.
because I've spoken for too much now, but I do want to get this
No,
bit
you
out. It's
haven't.
quite interesting. There's a scene in the film Pinocchio where, you know, the film Pinocchio, the original. I don't know if it's in the new one.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've watched that film. Yes, I know. Yeah.
You know, it's a classic, but most people haven't seen it, other than when they were like kids. But anyway, there's the scene in Pinocchio. Pinocchio goes to Pleasure Island, and he Pleasure Island is run by the coachman. And basically, what happens to the boys at Pleasure Island? They're all sort of reprobates. They all leave their parents. They get a bit of freedom, and they're sold the luxury and the idealistic view of what Pleasure Island is, which is, they're gambling, they're drinking, they're playing pool and stuff. And then what happens is these guys, the kids, start turning into jackass, and they start turning into like donkeys. And the whole point is that it's a really, really rough scene, actually, for a child to watch. But thankfully, not thankfully, but Pinocchio gets away. But the point I'm trying to make is that that scene is kind of a metaphor for like adolescence, particularly male adolescence, when sort of, when urges and aspects of you start to grow, you're drawn towards what could be like seen, not seen, what could be or end up being dangerous and unhealthy relationships with things which turn you into someone who you don't want to be. And I just thought it was interesting that you went away from your parents, you had this freedom, and in a lot of movies and things, we see this idea of freedom being bad originally, because freedom actually isn't always great. You need to know what to do with the freedom that you have. Otherwise, the likelihood is
Exactly.
that it could go the wrong way. Um, in the, I'm really going all over the place here. I'm sorry about this, but in the Spider-Man
You're good,
films,
dude.
always the original the Spider-Man films always have this scene where Uncle Ben dies is kind of his fault. So in the original, he lets the guy out who stole the money, and he does it because he's angry. And not that this really relates to freedom, but the point I'm trying to make is that there's a responsibility that men have when they go out into the world to not let the darker parts of them take over, because it makes their life worse and everyone else's life worse. And the reason I bring this up is because you kind of just described that story of it was bad, it was really, really bad, and all these things were going wrong, breakups, addictions, and then your way out of all this was exercise. And I guess that makes sense because you had programmed exercise into your subconscious because you did it so much when you were growing up. And sorry about that.
That is awesome. No, I mean, it's so true. It's so true, though. I mean, like, it's almost like this is the one thing that I've known, even though it's a path that I basically did not choose for myself. The one thing I know is how to move,
Yeah.
and I got really good at that. So it's like, that's all right. Like, let's lean into this because this is kind of all I know or what I've known for my entire life. And so then I did that. And then I kind of put my own spin on it, instead of just being sports and cardio. It's like, yo, I'm pushing myself with some weights, and I found what I loved for the first time in a long time, of like just finding something that I truly enjoy and get to challenge myself. And I'm doing it because I want to, not because a coach told me to do it or to show up. It's because I deciding. And I think when I started having that control of my life again, it just kind of took over. I didn't struggle. Like, I mean, I definitely struggled to lose weight, when I lost the weight, it was definitely a pain. But like once all the weight was off, it's like it seems like effortless for me because it made sense. It was creating this individual that I haven't seen in a long time, essentially. Like, oh my God, I feel like I'm finding myself again through just being alone in the gym. Like, I don't like straight up, like I like working out alone because it's just me. And that's my focus, is my time. And that's kind of how I've always trained. I've never gone through a long period of time with like training with other people. So, and it's because this is me time. This is what helped me grow.
Yeah.
And I get to challenge myself each and every day under my rules, which is cool, and that's kind of why I even leaned into entrepreneurship, because I can actually really show myself through my brand, through my business, and kind of just be unapologetically myself.
Yeah.
It's something that I've always wanted to be. And now I get to really flex that, and really lean into it. Because the unfortunate side of just being an engineer and stuff like that is I felt like I was once again getting bound to the rules of just like, or having to do this. And the only way I felt good is if I got a pat on the back, and I just didn't like it. So when I had the opportunity to go full time, I said, I'm going to take a chance on this and see what happens. Because it was just, I found it's just, once again, finding myself, So,
and you've got a really great presence on the social media as well, to be fair. You've got a very sort of infectious, engaging.
Thank you, man.
That's
I'm working on it. The goal is just to create. I don't like Instagram, straight up. I don't like social media.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it my way. And I'm going to do it in a way that like I try to show me. I'm not trying to be someone I'm not. I don't want to gain a following because I'm ripped or shredded. I don't want to gain a following with this. I just want to be me, be goofy, have fun, positive. That's my vibe. That's who I am.
Absolutely.
And I want to be that for other people too, man. That's just the little thing. So I appreciate that though, because I've been putting some effort into it recently.
Yeah.
Obviously got to do it for the business. So
no, it shows. It's definitely going to pay off. It's really good. So
thank you.
I mean, I'll be honest, you and engineering don't sound like they go very well together.
Yeah, right. A little bit weird, huh?
Yeah.
No, it was one of those things, once again, that was just I was told that I was going to be that. So
yes,
I've always been really into adrenaline. That's my thing. Movement. Mm-hmm. I love cars. So like big car guy growing up.
Yeah.
Like I used to love getting rides in my uncle's Mustang. It was like one of my favorite things to do was just get rides in his old Mustang. It was just the coolest thing. And so I got very, very into them as a child. And like, that was my thing. And then my dad saw that and he's like, you're going to be a mechanical engineer. That's what you're going to be. If I'm not a baseball player or whatever other sport, if you're not being a pro athlete, you're going to be an engineer, because he saw, it's just, once again, it's not the fault of his own or anything. It's like he saw my interest, and it's like, okay, I'm going to tell him a path that aligns with his interest. So technically he wasn't wrong. Right.
No,
And so that's just kind of like who, yeah, right. So that was kind of, that is either that or be like a mechanic, right? Or like a whatever. But turns out it's like, if I want to, I'm into cars, like, let's go be a race car driver. Like, that was more my vibe. So then I built my drift car, and now that's what I do.
yeah,
But yeah, it's just, that's kind of the way I went. And I've always loved motion, physics, stuff like that came naturally to me because I enjoyed it. Just the idea of motion and that was just my thing. So then I just kind of just kept taking that and going. And then once I got into the real world of the engineering world, I was like, this is not my thing. I feel like an anomaly walking around because I woke up at 4:30 a.m. to go to the gym, and I'm all fired up to go while going into the office with my jug of water, pre-made meals, all fired up. And then people around me are dragging their heels and just not taking care of themselves. And I just felt so alone, and no one understood me. I mean, it was just like, once again, just being feeling isolated again, all over again. In just a different world, I was obviously this individual that I went to started working with, like working as an engineer was much further along than what I was, but it was still growing. And I just didn't like that feeling of being isolated again. So I looked elsewhere. And so then when I got laid off, so eventually I got laid off, a massive budget cut from my engineering firm, just like half the employees who just got tossed. And I said, you know what, like, I've been coaching. It's like I've been full time with this online health coaching business for a year now, but I've been coaching for many years. So basically, after I lost all the weight, I got certified, and I just basically just was obsessed with the idea of just learning, studies, YouTube, podcasts. That was my thing. So I started coaching people on the side online, and I started trying to coach people in person while being an engineer, and it just didn't work. And I was just coaching on the side without even knowing it was considered online coaching, like a business. It's like, oh yeah, it pays for my groceries. This is so cool. It's a cool side hustle. And then when the opportunity arose, and I'm in a business group, and they said, dude, just go full tilt. I'm like, you're right. Let's do it. Let's go all in. So that's what happened. And it's worked out. And it's a dream come true, truly. But yeah, I know that was a long way to answer your question of being an engineer, but yeah, I don't feel like an engineer. No, straight up.
yeah. Maybe it does make actually a little bit more sense based on what you said. To be fair, if you like cars, then,
Yeah, based on like my interests, sure, but
yeah. But
like
also, you're clearly a very enthusiastic person, and enthusiastic people are really, really special, because you need enthusiastic people, because without them, the world is quite a dreary place. And enthusiastic people should be around other enthusiastic people, and we should, like, so in the word enthusiasm, I think enthusia is a Latin word which means to be imbued with the Spirit of God. So there's like a religious link to that. So when people are enthusiastic, they're imbued with the Spirit of God, and it's like related to dopamine and reward and incentive and progression. Right. So it's if everyone could feel more enthusiastic in life, I think the world would be a much better place, because it's great to move towards things. So the infectious nature of enthusiastic people is really interesting. So let's talk about the coaching, and I wanted to ask about diet. And I've got, one of my questions was, what is going on with the SAD, which is the standard American diet? I mean, that's what we call it over in here.
The standard, man.
That's what we say, yeah.
That's what you guys call it?
Yeah.
Because it literally is pretty sad, if you ask me.
And there's also that as well, yeah.
100%.
I know it's obviously a cliche that Americans, to be fair, I don't even think it's America anymore. I think the statistics on obesity are really, really awful.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah, it's not good. What do you eat now?
Ooh, what do I eat?
You used to. I mean, we've already talked, actually.
What I used to, man, I think I had cereal every morning. I think potentially, I don't even remember. Sometimes I didn't even eat breakfast. But then lunch, I would just have like a massive amount of like like big sub pastas, food that was just very easy to eat a lot of without knowing what was really in it. That was kind of it. Like whatever, pizza, hamburgers, that was my thing. I just grabbed it because it was convenient as well. Like being at school, that stuff was just easy to grab, you know? And I mean, even just day to day, that stuff is easier to get a hold of. It tends to, you know, the fast food stuff, it is easier to get a hold of. So, and then I just snacked, always had snacks 24/7. It was like a oral fixation thing. Keep myself busy. So like, oh, sitting on the couch, grab something, you know, oh, I'm studying, got to grab something, you know, I just like, just to keep my, I don't know what it was. It's just, it turns into like, now I just drink fluids or just drink water all the time and stuff like that. But I definitely have had like a little bit of a need for just oral fixation, something to take my mind.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's ease. I don't know. It's weird. But nowadays, oh man, very much whole food, single ingredient foods. So like just like very, very standard eggs, egg whites, Greek yogurts for breakfast, oats, sourdough breads. Basically the
Yeah.
least amount of ingredients you can put inside of a food as possible. Like
Yeah.
you hear the 80-20 rule all that time, but it's like 80% of the food that you are eating, it's like it's much better be coming from like whole food, single ingredient foods. So it's like the funny term of putting it is like it's any food that is grown out of the ground, grown out of a tree, or had a mom and dad. Pretty messed up to sound, but like it's true. It's like if you can, it sounds messed up, but it's true. If you can try to have most of your food come from there, it's just better for you. You'll feel better. Energy levels will be better. Your digestion will be better. Less inflammation. But yeah, so then lunch is very much very simple, dude. Like protein, vegetable, and then some fats or just like fibrous stuff. So, you know, vegetables, fruits, all that. And then rinse, repeat at dinner. Now, it sounds super boring, but like I obviously can make endless meals with that combination. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, you can make quesadillas, you can make anything, but that's kind of the heart of it, man. It's like keep it simple. You can make really, really tasty meals with very simple ingredients. You just got to know what to do. Yeah, it basically went from all the convenient junk food you could have to this stuff is it doesn't take that much time to prep. It still requires a little bit, but it just feels so much better, you know, so much better.